Hey, I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, America's most loved pet health coach. And today, what I'm going to try to do is explain to you the basics of traditional Chinese veterinary medicine in about 25 minutes. Now, that's a pretty daunting task because Chinese medicine has been around for at least 5,000 years for humans and over 3,000 years for farm animals. And treatment for pets really was adapted from both the human and the farm animal texts and really didn't start to appear until somewhere in the early 70s when China began to open up to the world and other practitioners came in, began to understand how to use Chinese medicine and started applying it to our pets. So super ancient. There is actually a text about called Bowley's Canon that was written over 3,000 years ago for horses and cattle. So amazing history. Now, one of the things that's a little difficult for us as Americans to understand is that the underlying concept in traditional Chinese medicine is the Tao. And the Tao is a philosophy or tradition of seeking balance in everything. And part of that, as it relates to health, is seeking harmony with ourselves and the world, how we balance in the world, and then harmony within the body itself, which has a much more direct impact on health. Now, this concept is often symbolized by the yin-yang symbol, which most of us are familiar with, which shows us the opposites creating the whole, and that within each opposite, there exists a little bit of the other, if that makes sense. So that's what the dots are within the large white parts, the black dot in the large white part and the white dot in the large black part. But in truth, the concept is duality. So we tend to think of things in terms of opposites. And with that, then we often will label good, bad, things of that nature. So for instance, with night and day, there are many associations with night being evil and the time of the devil and all this stuff, and the sun being the time of the gods that are nice to us. This is so difficult for us to kind of wrap our heads around that without night, there could not be day. And without day, there could not be night. So they are always related and in continuous motion. The other thing is that without both concepts, you simply could not understand either concept. So if we only had night, it would just be night all the time. And this would be our day, the way we were accustomed seeing things without light. So that's the point I'm trying to get to. So instead of thinking of things as opposites, which can indicate difficulty or kind of obstruction, just think of them as two halves of a whole, if you will. Now, the other thing is that TCVM has concentrated on achieving internal balance. And if that's the main thing, again, if duality or the Tao is seeking balance, then the system of medicine will concentrate on achieving balance internally. So the study of Chinese medicine is understanding what causes imbalance and then also how to restore balance, as well as understanding what balance would look like. So, sorry, I got two. There we go. So there's a few basic concepts I want to make sure you understand as well. And the first one is that of Qi. And it's also, you'll also see it spelled C-H-I, Qi. So for instance, the Qi Institute, where I did my traditional Chinese veterinary medicine training. And Qi is largely the energy that powers the body. It flows along a network of meridians, and meridians are what control the flow of energy throughout the organs and the rest of the body. And imbalance occurs when there is a blockage of the flow of qi. So this concept is similar in many different systems of medicine. In Ayurveda, it's prana, or life force. And the other thing I want you to realize is that there are many words in TCVM that are similar to conventional medicine, but blood with a capital B and blood lowercase are not equal. Liver with a capital L and liver lowercase have different functions. And the best way you can begin to sort of wrap your head around this is to think of these concepts in terms of being energetic parallels to the physical organs. When I started studying Chinese medicine, I just about drove myself nuts because I'm trying to make liver and liver match up, and it just wasn't happening. So when I finally took a deep breath and relaxed and said, okay, these folks developed the system of medicine by observation and seeing how different seasons, different herbs, different foods had impact on these organs and the energy flowing through the meridians. So to expand on that concept a little bit further, the organs, the major organs, are associated with the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And there are 2 types of organs. There are the Zheng organs, which are the solid organs that are considered to do the majority of the work. And then there are the Fu organs, or the hollow organs. Now, and then each organ, there's an organ associated with each element. So for instance, the earth, the center, is associated with the spleen, which was considered to be the major digestive organ. And then the stomach, the spleen's husband, is what's responsible for taking out the trash, if you will. And that's the same association with the other organs. Now, the 2 on the end, the triple burner and the pericardium, they regarded as exceptional organs. The triple burner is a system of, or 3 Xiaos is a system of energy development within the body. And what the Chinese did understand about the pericardium was that it protected the heart. And so it must be very special. The heart was considered to be the emperor. The fire element is the element of the emperor. And so they had special designations, but are not associated with an element. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Chinese understood that Qi is the energy or life force that travels through the body, and they have a very, very different digestive system. And because, again, much of it was based on observation, the spleen was really big, and so they thought, oh, this must be really important in digestion because it's right up next to the stomach. And essentially, they assigned it many of the functions of the pancreas. And so that can be a little bit confusing, but I want you to understand that is that really earth, spleen, and stomach are the main part of the digestive system. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that each of these organs has a meridian of its own, or a channel of energy that flows from some exterior point on the body, like the finger or toe, and then into the body to the organ itself, and then it may come back out again on other distal points on the body. Now, the exterior channel has named points with specific functions and actions. The interior channel, as I said, we're unable to access it in life. And so it sends the energy that you would derive from stimulating the point, whether that's with a needle or with acupressure, into the organ to help change its function. So I hope that makes some sense. It gets a little interesting sometimes. Now, along with that, there are two very important cycles which help illustrate the relationship between the elements. And the first one is the generating or Shing cycle. Sorry, I get my big head out of the way there. And these two, this generating cycle is extremely important because it shows the relationship between the parent element and the child element. And if they are both equally healthy, then they're on even footing and nobody is robbing energy from the other. The second image shows the control cycle or the relationship between the grandparent and the grandchild. And so if the parent, for instance, is weakened and the child is sucking up all of its resources, then the grandparent can sort of come over and get the grandchild to start behaving better and not taking everything from its parent. So the control cycle becomes very important if one of the elements is weakened to help try to maintain balance within the 5 organs. So we have a main constitutional element for each of us, each of our pets, and then other elements that may be important to us, or they may end up being impacted because of our constitutional element. So when I'm speaking with my clients and my coaches are speaking with their clients, we'll use a pet personality form to help determine what that pet's main constitutional element is. And that will help us understand what may be a problem later in life and also what we may need to address to really get to the root of the problem for that pet too. So that will help predict strengths and weaknesses. And then again, as I said, areas that may challenge our health later. So we'll use, again, you'll use this to assess for health issues and also make sure that that pet's main element stays in balance to help reduce the severity of disease. And part of that, we will approach that balancing with food therapy and herbs. But the other place where we can use this assessment is to decide what acupressure points and really herbal formulas would be important. So looking at these charts above, I'm going to sort of walk you through the concept. So green, healthy wood slows the flames of the fire but keeps it burning. So if we have wood that's healthy and in balance, it's going to allow the fire to continue to burn, but not consume all the fuel at one go. And then fire will generate the ashes to help build earth. Earth solidifies and turns to metal. Metal cuts a path for water to flow, and water nurtures the growing wood in the controlling cycle. Now, it gets a little bit different. So earth can dam up water to stop it from flowing so out of control. Metal can cut back unruly wood. Water slows the flames of fire. And then wood breaks up the expansive earth and tries to help dry the soil. And then fire will soften and temper metal. So we can use this information in relationship to life. So for instance, if your pet is a fire animal, which many of them are, we would want to use acupuncture points or acupressure points to tonify the fire element, as well as wood and water elements to keep fire well fed and in check. We also might use a general immune tonic point to stimulate the system, as well as a Shen calming point to help calm the Shen, which the heart houses. The Shen is considered to be the mind in Chinese medicine. And the heart is the organ associated with the fire element. So with 5 or 6 points, we can really help the system stay in balance. Using food and herbs, we would apply the same concepts, again, to help maintain balance. So how does disease occur? A couple of things will start to happen. The organs become imbalanced. They are either under or over controlled, And then imbalance will create a disruption of the flow of qi, and then symptoms of disease occur. So in disharmony, a common pattern diagnosis in TCVM is liver overacting on spleen. So again, the spleen is the main digestive organ, and transforming the food we eat into energy, or guqi, we need for our bodies to work well. So if the liver continually overacts on the spleen, then we can end up with issues like inflammatory bowel disease. And so that's why many pets will start off with a little vomiting here and there, and then diarrhea every now and again, and then all of a sudden diarrhea every week. So if you or your pet's been experiencing a lot of stress, then you develop liver qi stagnation. And then this stagnation makes the liver hot, and then the symptoms start occurring. They may range from belching, as I said, all the way to inflammatory bowel disease. So it's a pretty interesting concept. And then having said that, how does that go into disharmony? Then how do we balance disharmony and bring it back into harmony? So we can do that with herbs, food, acupressure, tuina, and we can use all of those things to help restore balance. Now, one thing that I think does bear mentioning is that Chinese herbal formulas are different than Western herbals because they are designed to treat specific patterns of disharmony. And one Western disease can be caused by different patterns. Unfortunately, the incorrect herbal formula can make things worse. Thankfully, it's limited mostly to diarrhea, things of that nature. But there can be some more severe side effects. So the formulas that I'm sharing with you below are generally considered to be safe regardless of what pattern may be present. So make your best guess, and if you're unable to find a TCVM practitioner, and I think you will see that your pet becomes well supported. Now, the four most common patterns of disharmony that I've seen are spleen qi deficiency, and many would argue that it all starts with spleen qi deficiency, liver qi stagnation, and kidney yin deficiency, and then lastly, Shen Disturbance, which is related to the fire element. Shen Disturbance is going to be the behavior issues that we're starting to see just rampantly in our pets. Now, let's start with this first one, spleen qi deficiency. And remember, the strategies, I'm going to walk through each of these, but the strategies are really for more long-term control of these issues and to help support in a very gentle way. So the spleen is the main digestive organ. And again, because it was assigned many of the functions of the pancreas, that's what we see it doing in Chinese medicine. But this is where it gets a little different. So it is responsible for transportation and transformation. So in Chinese medicine, transportation equals the transmission of gu qi, which is essentially the food qi, but in terms of physiology, it's the food essence or glucose, amino acids, fats, et cetera, and transformation implies digestion and absorption. Now, when the body goes out of balance, it often does start with deficient spleen qi because the spleen has been asked to deal with too much damp engendering foods, cold foods, or foods that are too hot. According to TCVM food therapy theory, food should support digestion by being easy to digest, thoroughly cooked, and eaten in season. And because we're able to get vegetables from pretty much everywhere all the time, seasonal eating has really sort of fallen out of favor. The other thing I want you to remember is that the stomach is the cooker of the 100-degree soup. So if the food is either too cold or too hot, then the body has to acclimate the food to body temperature. And this slows and damages digestion. Eating in season provides veggies that are going to support the organs according to what's going on in the current environment. So that's kind of the basic concepts. Now, for spleen qi deficiency, These herbs comprise a formula we call Four Gentlemen, or Tang, and ginseng, licorice, atractyloides, and poria are the basics. They are designed to help tonify spleen and qi. They dry up damp. Poria is a type of mushroom, and ginseng and atractyloides are what are tonifying the spleen and the qi. And then licorice is present in many, many formulas because it is considered to be a harmonizer. So if there are some properties of an herb that may not quite be beneficial, or they may not play well together, then licorice is in many of these formulas to help prevent that. Now, diet for spleen qi deficiency. This is where food therapy begins to come in. And so one thing I want you to notice is, do you see the colors here? So they're orange, tan, with the exception of the black beans. So it's a very earth-colored sort of array of foods there. And so things like congee of oats, rice, and spelt, and a congee is a soup, basically, or a porridge. So essentially it's overcooked parts of that grain. And then winter squash, carrot, rutabaga, garbanzo beans, black beans, and then onion, garlic, ginger, and cinnamon. Now, before you freak out, yes, onions and garlic can be toxic to dogs and cats, but it is a dose-dependent thing. They can also be toxic to us if we eat 10 pounds. For instance, a 50-pound dog could eat a raw clove of garlic every day safely. Cats do have more of a toxicity issue, so we want to be careful about how much we include in the food. And for that reason, I do include, when I'm instructing people how to make the original CrockPet diet, we include a clove of garlic, but that's one clove of garlic in about 16 cups of food. So I think it's very safe that way. Now, the second thing I want to talk with you about is liver qi stagnation. And this is one of the most important ones. Because again, this is how the liver often drags the rest of the body out of balance. So liver qi should be flowing through the body unrestrained, and it's important to make sure that everything is working correctly. But a disease comes from liver qi stagnation, which will end up impacting the digestive system, as we discussed. And then the other component is that blood, with a capital B, does not flow to tissues with the nutrients that they need. And so what we'll start to see are things like anxiety, irritability, stress, depression. And so our goal here is going to be to clear stagnation and tonify the liver. Now, one of the classic formulas for doing that is Xiao San, or Free and Easy Wanderer. And it's a fairly large formula, as far as we went from 4 gentlemen to basically we've got 8 or 9 different herbs here. But there's a couple of things this formula does. One is there are herbs that will strengthen the spleen and then smooth the liver qi, so it just chills out. And then it will clear heat and cool the blood down so that it's able to take nutrients appropriately. And then it will course the liver qi, so move that stagnation out. And the main herb that does that is bupleurum. And then also it will help to calm Shen, because as the liver gets hot, because it's sitting right underneath the heart. Sorry, I'm being audio bombed by my cat. We have a visitor cat that Pepe is thinking is evil and has to be dealt with. So at any rate, what I was saying is, because the heart sits right on top of the liver, if the liver is hot, the heat rises, and then the Shen located inside the heart comes up and starts to do crazy things. So the last thing this formula helps to do is to invigorate blood, or get it to start moving, and also to break up stasis, which is really important. In Chinese medicine, stasis is one of the things that begins to cause cancer. Now, as far as diet goes, there are things, the dark leafy greens and the brassica vegetables are going to be the things that really support the liver and help to start to course them and move things along. Also, mustard and beets and vinegar help to do that. Now, kidney yin deficiency is the third thing I want to talk with you about. And cats are kidney yin deficient monsters. So when spleen qi is deficient, how this sort of comes about is that there is inadequate qi produced to maintain the kidney jing or essence. Spleen qi deficiency will also prevent the transportation of fluids from getting distributed around the body properly. And accumulation of dampness with spleen qi deficiency will damage the ability of the kidney to govern water. So again, remember, kidney is associated with the water element. And the symptoms we will begin to see are hearing loss, bone problems, and premature aging, and then also excessive fear and insecurity. So we see that with our older parents and grandparents. As they get older, they tend to get a bit more fearful. So in this situation, we want to tonify both the kidney and tonify yin. And secondarily, we want to support the spleen. So this formula, Ramania 6 or Jingui Xin Qiwan, is used as a classic to tonify kidney yin deficiency. And in it is prepared Ramania root, which you'll see in a lot of Western formulas for kidney disease, and then cornus and Chinese yam, rhizome. These will, the poria, again, our friend poria that dries up damp, and the cornus will help support the spleen. And then alisma and the tree peony root bark, again, is to support yin deficiency and tonify the kidney. Now, foods we could use are going to be, and notice the colors again here. We've got really dark colors, red colors for the most part. So millet, barley, tofu, which is controversial because it's a soy product, and then beans, especially kidney beans, because they look like kidneys, so they tonify the kidneys, and black beans, also string beans or green beans, watermelon, seaweed, and berries, and then the proteins you could use would be sardine, crab, eggs, pork, and cheese. Now, lastly, let's talk a little bit about Shen disturbance. Now, in Chinese medicine, Shen is one of the 5 treasures, including Qi, Jing, blood, and body fluid, and it rules the mind and the whole body. Health exists when the 5 treasures are abundant and properly moving. So movement is another really important component. And I think this is part of what's happened with our pets as we've become sedentary, so have they. And I think that's creating a lot of health issues. So some symptoms of Shen disturbance: restlessness, palpitations, anxiety, easily frightened, inability to focus the attention, and insomnia. Does that sound familiar to anybody? And there's a couple of things we can do in terms of supporting the Shen and emotions with food. And one of the things that was used very commonly in Chinese medicine is magnesium or calcium to stabilize erratic emotions. And lo and behold, that actually works, we figured out in Western medicine. But they used dragon bone or oyster shell. And what they thought is that it weighted the Shen down to keep it in the heart. The other thing you can do is reduce the processed carbohydrates. Wow, they had that figured out 5,000 years ago too. Or go to a keto diet. And then again, because our friend the liver is sitting underneath the heart making heat, we want to course the liver to reduce the heat. We could feed heart muscle to tonify heart. And so like feeds like. And then also we'd want to tonify blood and tonify yin, because the heart is the emperor of blood, and it is it needs to be cooled constantly. So if we bring the yin up, that takes the heat back down. Now, the classic formula for Shen Disturbance is Celestial Emperor's Blend or Tian Wang Bushindan. And again, look at the colors here. So really, really red, because that's going to tonify the heart and the blood. So we've got Shasandra, Biota, Sour Jujube, Romania, again, another yen tonic back in there, Scrophularia, all these amazing herbs. And the point here, this is one of the few formulas where the spleen is sort of out of consideration. If the emperor is unhappy, everybody is unhappy, even though it's not really running the show. So the purpose of this formula is to soothe the mind, relieve dryness, nourish yin and blood, and also nourish the heart itself. So I hope this has made sense. There are, for those of you that are really interested in pursuing this a bit further, there are several organizations where you can just go and see if there's a veterinarian close enough to you to help, that practices TCVM, to help you with acupuncture, herbs, food, and things of that nature. So TCVM.net is associated with the Qi Institute, where I trained. IVAS is the International Veterinary Acupuncture Society. They have a vet lookup. And then, of course, the AHVMA, or the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association. You can go find a practitioner there as well. Now, in my travels, what I realized is that many of you live in very rural settings. And because of that, you won't have access to a TCVM practitioner. You can do consultations, but your pet is best served if you can do a consult. So it's difficult. But in general, Herbsmith makes a great line of supplements that are available over the counter. Con Herbals, also high quality. And then if you're really out in the middle of nowhere, Acu Atlanta is a great resource. They offer complimentary consultations and may be able to help you with product selection. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope that this was useful and helped you, and I wish you the very best in caring for your pets. I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, America's most loved pet health practitioner.